If you're waiting for Miami to look obviously different on a price chart before you make a move, you might miss what actually shifted. Because right now, the change is showing up in leverage, days on market, and how picky buyers are about the exact neighborhood and the exact property type. When you zoom in on Miami, a real clear story shows up. And that's why in this video, I'll be breaking down why Miami can feel active on the surface, but the market is moving slower underneath, and why condos and single-family homes are not the same market right now, and what changes in negotiations because of that, and what to do differently in 2026 so you can win without automatically overpaying. I'm Milton Andrade. I help buyers and sellers across Miami make calm, timing-aware decisions with a real focus on neighborhood trade-offs and total cost, so you are not guessing in a market that has already shifted. So let's get into what exactly changed and what the data is really saying, and how I would approach Miami today if you're buying, selling, or trying to make a move up in 2026. The headlines are a mirage. The headlines are still showing a median sale price around $600,000. And just at a glance, it feels like Miami is just doing typical Miami. But I've seen this movie before. I've sat at the closing table through the boom of the early 2000s, the correction of '08, and the madness of 2021. And what the headlines miss is the tempo. What we're seeing now is 61 days median time for pending sales, and over 100 days on market. When a housing sits for 3 or 4 months, that isn't a stagnant market. It's a market where leverage is quietly handing itself back to the buyer. And not everything is a bidding war. Right now, only about 6.9% of sales in the city are closing over list price. For a few years there, over asking was the only way to get a front door key. Today, the median sale to list price ratio is about 96.5%. That means the average buyer is walking away with a discount. And if you're coming in with bidding war energy in 2026, you're likely to be overpaying. Now, here is the real shift. It's the inventory split. Miami-Dade's single-family homes are about 6.2 months of supply, but the condo and the townhome market, now that has ballooned to about 13.2 months. This is where my experience across multiple cycles comes in. Why we aren't in one market, and we are in a split-screen reality. When you're in a 13-month supply in the condo sector, it's a completely different negotiation than a 6-month supply in the single-family home neighborhood. You can't use the same offer strategy for a house in Coral Gables that you would use for a tower in Brickell. And as of January 1st, 2026, all condo associations have to begin funding their Sears reserves. Remember that structural integrity reserve study? I've watched how condo laws have changed over the decades, and this is one of the biggest fundamental shifts I've ever seen. The changes are good for the market in the long term, but can be painful today. In 2026, you aren't just buying a view, you're underwriting a building's financial health, and buyers are looking at reserves and assessments in a way they have never done in the last 5 or 10 years. And the building's map doesn't math, then the unit doesn't sell. Now, how do all this change negotiations? Well, time is your leverage. If the median time to contract for condos is 72 days compared to homes of 45 days, that means time is a tool for you, the buyer. In a hot market, time works against the buyer, but in this shifted 2026 market, time works for you. If a seller is at day 80 and they haven't seen an offer, their certainty is gone. And that's when I go in and talk about price and concessions. In Miami, cash closings still represent a huge chunk of the market, over 500 in a single month for condos alone. But even after all these years, cash is still king in Miami. But certainty is the real currency. If you're financing at a 6.1% interest rate, your offer has to look and feel as clean as a cash deal to win the seller over in a very selected market. And if you're working in condos, you got more leverage. But in single family homes and you're up against a cash offer, how do you compete? You gotta look good. And you also have the rate lock-in effect, where a lot of people were sitting in their homes because they're sitting at a 3% rate or better, and buying a home is so much more expensive. Well, that is starting to wane, with 50% of all outstanding mortgages at 6% or above. And as of this taping, Freddie Mac is showing a 30-year interest rate at around a 6.1%. I talk to owners every day, and they are maybe locked in at a 3% rate from a few years ago. And this is why you don't see a flood of houses hitting the market. The supply is staying tight because the cost of moving is higher than it's ever been in a generation. But the tide is turning. In 2026, buyers need a strategy. Before you even look at a property, you need to know which side of the shift that you're on. The rules for a 6-month supply in a residential neighborhood are completely different than the rules for a 13-month supply in a high-rise neighborhood. And you need to leverage the clock. Use the day on the market to gauge how much a seller is willing to move. Not only how long has it been on the market, but have they made a price change in all that time? That's going to tell you who is motivated and who isn't. And with condos, you need to underwrite the risk. The monthly cost and the building reserves are the deal. Now, what does a seller have to do in 2026? What strategy should they implement? Well, price it for today, not last year. Testing the market is expensive. It just buys you extra days on the market and less leverage. Like I was saying, if you've been there for 30, 60, or 90 days and you haven't budged, you don't look serious. And if you're in a condo building, you need to position the building well. You need to be very transparent and tell the story of the building's financial stability, because that's more important than the view. And if you're moving up, we have to link your sale to your purchase, and these payments have to make sense, not just the price. I'm actually working with a few clients right now, and they're moving from a 2-bedroom single-family home into a 6-bedroom single-family home. How? Well, a Miami-Dade to Broward County move is one way to make that happen. It's not impossible. They're selling and buying at the same price for more bedrooms and more square footage. And I can help you do this too. I'm Milton Andrade, and if you're buying, selling, or trying to move within Miami in 2026, the biggest mistake I see is using one strategy for every neighborhood and every property type, because the condo market and the single-family market are not moving in the same way right now. If you want a clear plan based on your exact area, your timeline, and the real monthly cost of ownership, use the link in the description to schedule a quick call. We'll map out your lane, what leverage you actually have, and how to make a clean move without guessing in a market that's already shifted.